Hi everyone, my name is Monique, and today I'm going to be giving you an overview of a game that is currently on Kickstarter called Avalon the Riven Veil, designed by Jamie Jolly and published by Shadowborne Games, who are helping sponsor this video. In this game, 2 to 4 players take on the role of legendary Arthurian factions who are tasked with exploring the misty Isle of Avalon. Over the course of 3 seasons, players score points by discovering powerful artifacts, establishing bonds with mythical beasts, fulfilling prophecies, and ultimately winning control of its various regions. This is an area control game for 2 to 4 players that features various modes of play as well as highly asymmetrical player boards. And so today, I'm going to be giving you a general overview of the game just so you have an idea as to what to expect. But before I continue, I do need to mention that everything that you see here is considered a prototype copy of the game, which means things are subject to change in the future. For more information regarding the game, I've included a link to the Kickstarter campaign in the description below. Last but not least, if you enjoy content like this and would like to see more in the future, please consider subscribing. And with that, we are ready to begin. So, if you please direct your attention to the center of the table, we're all set up here for a game of Avalon the Riven Veil. Welcome to the Misty Isle of Avalon. And so, like I was mentioning, in this game, players take on the role of one of 4 factions from the legend of King Arthur. We have the famous Knights of the Round, and we also have Druids, the Fomorians, and the Undead. And each faction has their own player mat as well as their own army of miniatures that includes warriors, 3 champions, as well as a lord. And so as you can see, I'm currently set up from one player's perspective. Now in this game, players will be exploring the Isle of Avalon that starts completely covered in mist. And over the course of the game, we'll be playing cards from our hand in order to deploy units, explore the mist, and build settlements to prepare for war in each region, because this is an area control game. And although the war aspect of the game is the main focus, there are other ways to score points, including collecting artifact cards, bonding with mythical beasts, building settlements, and fulfilling prophecies, as you'll see. But before we continue, I also want to reiterate that what I'm showcasing here is the game in its prototype form, so a lot of changes have already been made, including the way that the combat system works, as we'll talk about later. When playing the game, it's important to note that you'll have multiple options for customizing your gameplay. You can choose between playing the short or long game that lasts either 2 or 3 seasons, and you can also decide between playing with the standard abilities or with highly asymmetrical faction abilities. Regardless of the mode you're playing, each game begins in spring, and each season is divided into 3 phases, starting with the Mist phase, where you'll basically be preparing the board by adding a Mist card to each region face down. During the War phase, players will battle for these cards, and they include a mix of artifacts, mythical beasts, and the Holy Grail. We'll also lay out a number of prophecy cards equal to the current season, which provide players with public goals to compete for. And finally, each player will draw a hand of 8 cards, 2 from each of the 4 different decks in the game, before moving into the preparation phase. During this phase, players will be preparing for war by playing cards from their hand and taking actions on the board. Now there are 4 different types of cards in the game. Deploy cards that allow you to deploy units onto the board, move cards for moving your units and exploring the mist, settlement cards for building settlements into the different regions in order to score points, and battle plan cards that provide benefits and determines your maximum possible strength during the war phase. Now during the preparation phase, players will go through 3 rounds of playing and resolving a card from their hand by paying its cost in additional cards from their hand. During each preparation round, players will first secretly and simultaneously choose a card from their hand to play and pay its cost in cards, which is listed at the top left-hand corner. Some cards provide a discount if a certain criteria has been met, and once all players have simultaneously revealed their cards, then players take turns from highest to lowest initiative order, according to the number on their chosen card. And in the case of a tie, the Grail Bearer always breaks ties, followed by players with the least amount of victory points. Then, on your turn, you can choose to either resolve your chosen card by discarding the cards you paid and resolving all of its effects from top to bottom and left to right, or you can choose to take back all of your cards and instead take one of the 4 standard actions with their own individual card costs, which are deploying 2 units to a region, building a settlement, moving units to adjacent regions, or drawing a card of your choice. And so as you can see, even though players have already chosen the card and already paid for it, on your turn, you're not required to resolve it. You can always choose to take one of those 4 standard actions so that there's a bit of flexibility. Now, each player has 3 different types of units. There are warriors, 3 champions, and 1 lord. And these units will provide strength during the war phase. In addition, the 3 champions and lord also have the ability to utilize artifacts that you'll gain throughout the game. These artifacts are assigned to a specific miniature, and they'll give you both victory points as well as an ability that you can use during the game. At the start of each season, players' units will typically be off of the board, and in order to get them into these regions, you'll need to take a deploy action. When deploying units, the actions will typically tell you how many units you can send out, as well as in how many different regions you can send them to. And when doing so, you can only send them out to either a region that contains one of your settlements or a coastal region. However, any warriors or champions that are sent to an unexplored region are considered to be in the mist, which means they have no strength and they can't leave this region until it's been explored. And so the only unit type that has the ability to explore the mist are the lords. And so anytime you move or deploy a lord into an unexplored region, then you'd pause in order to reveal both the region as well as the mist card. And so in this region, it looks like we are battling over a mythical beast, the Kelpie. And the player who revealed the region also chooses a bonus from one of the ones listed on the region tile. And these rewards include things such as drawing a card or deploying warriors or champions. Some rewards let you move units, and some gain you faction power, which is a currency that you'll need to spend in order to utilize some of your asymmetric abilities. And now that this region has been explored, players will have the ability to go to war during the next phase in order to score the points listed on the region tile, as well as to take control of the mist card that was in that region. And mythical beasts have a representative miniature that players will take control of in order to send them out onto the board, gaining them more strength during war. And lastly, now that this is explored, players have the ability to build settlements as long as they have at least 1 unit in the region. Settlements will score players points, but also at the end of the round, if there's at least 1 settlement in the region, then the tile will remain explored in the next season. Otherwise, the tiles typically go back into the mist, and they're replaced by a new tile moving into the next season. But those are the main types of actions that you'll be taking during the preparation phase. This phase is all about getting your units onto the board, exploring regions, building settlements, and trying to get into position for when we have to go to war. And again, players will resolve a total of 3 preparation rounds per season. In addition to these main actions, players also have asymmetric abilities that they can use by spending faction power, which is a currency that you'll be gaining in various ways throughout the game. And players will score points by completing public objectives via these prophecy cards. As an example, this card wants you to bond a mythical beast this season. Now you'll always play with a number of prophecy cards equal to the current season, and fulfilling prophecies will gain you both victory points as well as favor, which moves you up on the favor track, gaining you benefits and additional victory points. And once the preparation phase is done, then players move into the war phase, where starting with the northeastern coastal region and moving in a circular swirl, players will be resolving battle in each region in order to score victory points and to take control over the mist card that's there. In addition, depending on whether or not you're playing with the standard catch-up mechanism, players also have the opportunity to gain the Green Knight as well as Excalibur, which gives the player extra strength for this specific war phase. During this phase, players can have no more than 5 units in each region. In addition, battles are only resolved in regions that have 2 or more competing players. When resolving a battle, players start by calculating their initial strength, which is going to be dependent on the number and type of units that they have in the region. Each unit in your army provides you with 1 strength, but each champion and your lord may also have an artifact, which provides you with additional strength. Players also gain strength for any settlements or any mythical beasts they control that are in the same region. And once all players have calculated their starting strength, then each player who has at least 1 champion or their lord in battle can simultaneously choose and reveal a battle plan card from their hand. These cards provide players with a specific ability, and they also dictate the maximum amount of additional strength you'll be able to add in a sort of push your luck fashion. Although I should mention that the current rules for battle are still a work in progress, and so as of right now, players can also choose to add an additional 3 bonus cards from their hand in order to increase that maximum strength. Then, starting with the player with the most strength on the strength track, On your turn, you'll draw cards from any of the 4 decks of your choosing, up to your maximum strength value. You can choose when to stop, but each card you draw must be drawn in secret. Because once each player has taken a turn, players add up the initiative values of each drawn card. And if the sum exceeds their maximum strength allowed, then their battle plan fails. Which is why it's important to keep drawn cards a secret. If their battle plan fails, they still gain additional strength equal to half the maximum value of their battle plan card. But you won't be able to resolve the ability that's listed on the card. However, if your battle plan succeeds, then you get to resolve the ability and add up the total initiative sum to your strength. And the player who won the battle gains both the missed card that's in the region, as well as the victory points listed on the region tile, depending on the current season. And that is generally how battle works. Now, I did not go over all of these specifics, but just so you know, one of the newest updates is there is now an option for deterministic battle, which completely removes the push your luck element. When playing with this mode, players gain the full amount of their battle plan as well as any bonus cards they've discarded. So this way, players have more control, but there is a little less tension coming from the unknown. Then, once players have resolved all of the region battles, then players move into the end of round phase where they discard the rest of their hand, gaining 1 victory point per card discarded this way. Then, at the start of the next season, players will gain points for their settlements that are on the board. In addition, any regions without a settlement on it will disappear back into the mist, which means the board will change because players will need to replace the existing region tiles with the ones that are not being used. But that's essentially it. At the end of the final season, the game will end and players will score victory points for each revealed settlement one last time. And at that point, whoever has the most victory points wins. And again, ties are broken in favor of the player who has the Holy Grail at the end of the game. And so, like I was mentioning, this game is currently in its prototype form, and so things are still a work in progress, including the specifics of certain rules. But hopefully this gives you a general idea as to what to expect. And again, this game plays up to 4 players, and so when playing with lower player counts, you'll block certain regions with impenetrable tokens that you won't be able to utilize throughout the game. And I wasn't able to go over the specifics of each faction, but on the opposite side of the standard board, each faction is highly asymmetric, giving players the ability to sort of pave their own way to winning the game. And again, much of the gaming experience will come from exploring the different asymmetries amongst the 4 different factions. So for more information regarding the game, as well as the specifics about the factions, I've included a link to the Kickstarter campaign in the description below. Otherwise, if you have any questions about anything that you saw here today, please feel free to leave me a comment down below, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you so much for watching the video. I really hope it was helpful. If you enjoy content like this and would like to see more in the future, please consider subscribing. Thank you. Bye.